Hey everyone, before we start the show, I just want to get some plugs out of the way. If you enjoy this podcast and you're into wrestling, check out the Nerds and Marks podcast or Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling. If you're not getting your fill on movie and entertainment discussion, then check out the Entertainment Buffet podcast. If you want to dive into the world of video games, I highly recommend the Darkcast by my friends over at darkstation.com. Listen to them cover important topics and interview men and women from all over the industry. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Everyone, and welcome to Shelves Podcast episode 19. I am your host, Jeremy Meyer. Wow, I just realized we're one away from 20, so that's pretty exciting. Today's a very fun special episode for you. I got a first-time guest, because normally I've been running with the same guests, which are most of my coworkers. But this time I sit down with a man named Brandon Prosek. And Brandon, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. But I met Brandon through Twitter, through the podcast, actually. And he's one of a few people I've met through Twitter because of the podcast that will be guesting on the podcast. But yeah, it's a nice, fun, different little dynamic. We met for the first time and sat down and recorded this episode. And that episode is Green Arrow: Escape from Supermax. Now, I sent Brandon a list of scripts, and there was definitely some different ones he was interested in, but I was kind of feeling a superhero one, so I kind of pushed him a little bit towards this one. And we both watched Arrow, which is something we talked about on the podcast. And that was kind of like, I knew about Green Arrow, but that was my main introduction to the character, as I assume it is for a lot of people. But this is a script that was written in 2008, and basically would have been our introduction to Green Arrow in the cinematic world, which at this point, it sounds like there are still no plans for DC to make a Green Arrow movie, which seems a little strange considering they have the TV show, which was wildly popular. But it was a really interesting read. It's really fun. We had a lot of fun talking about it, and this actually ended up being the longest episode. So, I mean, we clearly were having a good time. But yeah, I just want to say sorry this episode is going up so late because I did have to do we got interrupted a few times during the podcast, so I did have to do a lot of editing, so it took a little longer than I would have normally wanted. I usually like having these go up at midnight, but I had a little more editing, and it's really busy at work, so I didn't have as much time to do the editing, so sorry about it not being up already. Normally it is in the morning. But I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Brandon was a lot of fun to talk to. And he actually has his own podcast, which we plug at the beginning of every show, and we get into more plugs on that during the episode. But his podcast is the Entertainment Buffet, and it's a really fun podcast if you want to listen to some thoughts on some movies, like some top 10 lists and things like that. He also has a play coming up that they're doing casting for, so we plug that in the show as well. I don't have the details in front of me now, but definitely listen to that in the show. If you're an actor in the Chicago area, maybe go check out those auditions. So that's going to be it for all my plugs and getting the business out of the way. So why don't we jump into Green Arrow: Escape from Supermax.
just because like when I read scripts, whether it's, you know, like a real person's one or just like a friend's, like I just wrote notes.
I generally...
We don't have to go through all of them.
No.
Obviously, I just, it's like as I'm reading, I'm just like, Like you said, it was just like Joker reference, you know,
Yeah,
Riddler.
I think that's literally a note I have too. But before we get into it, since like you have a podcast, and everything yourself, and this is our first time meeting, so nice to meet you. Why don't you tell me a little about yourself?
So my name is Brandon Prosek. I am from the Chicago suburbs of Geneva, born and raised, and went to school downtown here in Chicago. Lived here for about 5 years, and been dabbling in writing, directing, some stand-up, podcasting. My little plug I'll do is I run a small production company, quote unquote, Entertainment Buffet, where we are doing videos. We have the Entertainment Buffet podcast, which Jeremy's gracious enough to plug as we try to plug each other's.
Yeah, we plug at the beginning of every episode, and I listen to it. It's a really fun list. I love the lists you guys do and stuff like that. I'm a sucker for lists, and I started incorporating some of that into because I do my mini episode on Monday, and that's where I try to get some of that stuff.
Yeah, I've been. I just finished. I think it was the other day. Your guys' list on TV shows.
Yeah,
or no, the comic book one. That's the one I most recently.
Well, I did a couple comic book ones. I did Marvel, and then I did
MCU.
Just all comic books.
Yeah.
Or all comic book movies, I should say. Yeah, because it was MCU. I did it because I just watched Doctor Strange for the first time. Because I bought it when it came out. I missed it in theaters, and I finally watched the Blu-ray. And that one I liked it way more than I thought I would.
Interesting.
So I wanted to just do a ranking, and I think that one felt like number 4 for me.
Wow.
Yeah, I just had no expectations for that movie. Kind of went in like, I know I'm probably gonna like it because it's Marvel, but I really liked it. Like, I think Cumberbatch is Robert Downey Jr. level of like meant to play that character.
Yeah, for Doctor Strange, I definitely I liked it. My biggest thing, and we won't spoil, but the third act, how it was going in the direction of there's a giant CGI cloud thing in the sky. But then they did a twist on how to solve it.
Yes.
And I loved that twist.
The ending.
So, that I loved. The only thing I wasn't a fan of, and it's more so because, we both are writers.
Yes.
The origin story, I'm kind of getting
little.
It made sense for him because he's a weird character.
And it's Marvel diving into magic for the first time, which I think the future for them is the way they introduce Spider-Man and Black Panther.
Exactly.
Just throw them into other movies. And I think they're done making solo Marvel movies unless it's something completely groundbreaking. Like Captain Marvel, they're going to obviously do an origin. But they're going to start introducing all these characters, it seems, in other movies. Because how everyone complained in the beginning of, why isn't Iron Man helping Captain America and Winter Soldier or whatever? Now you got Hawkeye is going to be in Ant-Man and Wasp. You got Iron Man and Spider-Man
Homecoming.
Yeah, and I guess Doctor Strange is actually in Thor, which I didn't know until I looked at the cast list the other day. Yeah, and I think that's the way it's going to be from now on.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed Doctor Strange. I think it was, like you said, because it was magic, we needed the origin. But for me, it was just it was because Stan Lee, he wrote all these characters back in the 60s.
Yeah.
It was very much Tony Stark, it
felt very similar.
A rich, super talented.
Do you watch the Honest Trailers YouTube channel?
Yes.
Did you see the one for
Screen
that?
Junkies? Yeah,
where they basically just split screen with Iron Man. And it's all the same scenes.
Yeah,
and it's one of those things. They did the same thing with Civil War and Batman v Superman, which you don't realize. All those movies are way more similar than anyone even thought about.
Yeah, I guess I just kind of thought, especially with Deadpool coming out beginning of 2016, one of my favorite comic book characters.
Yeah, me too.
And the movie was just done
so well.
I couldn't have been happier.
Yeah.
Where it was an origin story, but they did the non-linear,
he's
really Deadpool at first, but let's go back.
I really like the way they mixed it up. And that is the one positive thing I'll say about Man of Steel, is they did it a little differently too.
So I thought that's what they would do for Doctor Strange. I thought because he's magic, they'd kind of he'd have memories and do the magic-y.
They had all the opportunity
flashbacks.
To do it different, but I understand because it's magic. It's something we haven't really dived into.
It could be worse. It could be BVS.
Yes. Oh my God. That is. I always tease it on the podcast. I'm going to cover DC movies in a big way, and I'll tell you off the air how I plan on doing that. But
awesome. Yeah. So it's funny you bring that up because we're reading Green Arrow.
Yeah.
Escape from Supermax.
Yes.
And the first thing I was always wondering, I was like, is this supposed to be the first Green Arrow film, or is this supposed to be a sequel to another Green Arrow origin? You know,
I will say it reminded me of, and a lot of people compare like origin movies to the original Tim Burton Batman.
Okay.
But to me, this feels the most like the original Tim Burton Batman, because if you think back to that movie, he's already Batman in the beginning.
Yeah.
And you get hints of his origin throughout, and you get the kind of the big dump of it at the end. And that's similar to what this is.
Yes.
He's already Green Arrow in the beginning.
Yep.
And you get little hints. Like, we know the story now because you watch the TV show, I assume.
Yes.
I watched the first couple seasons. I do want to get back to it. I haven't watched Flash. I know everybody loves Flash, but I really love Arrow. And
Yeah.
I'm at the point where everybody says it kind of starts to trail off a little bit. So I
Yes.
haven't fallen off of it yet. But I love the first 2 seasons. Like, the first season is one of my favorite first seasons of television.
Yeah, I also watched Arrow. I watched it from, I got around the halfway point or towards 3/4 of the way of season 4.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, you know what? We live in an age where there are so many shows.
So many.
And this isn't necessarily just Arrow's fault, but like a lot of dramas that are on, you know, places like CW or NBC, they go for 23, 24 episode seasons. And towards the end, I'm like, oh God, just wrap it up. You know, like it was trailing.
And I heard season 4 is like really rough. Like 3 was still, from what I understand, 3 was still decent, but 4 is where it lost a lot of people.
3 was hit or miss, and then 4 was very like. I remember the one time I was watching an episode because I was trying to. I don't have cable. Me and my wife don't have.
Yeah, we don't either.
Hulu,
Just
Netflix,
the exact same
HBO
thing.
now. Yeah, WWE Network.
Yes.
And I was trying to catch up on Hulu. I was a couple episodes behind, and all of a sudden, I think it was like 16, 17 episodes in, and I was like, honestly, this feels like a chore. Mm-hmm. It feels like I'm doing it because I'm supposed to keep up, but I don't necessarily want to.
Yeah, like you loved it. You felt that loyalty, but watching it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, and one thing, it's funny, it's so different from the movie script is, and you said you're about middle of season 3 or so.
Yeah.
Is in the show, he builds like his own team.
Yes, he does.
And to me, it got annoying because I was like, okay, everyone knows he's Green Arrow.
Yeah.
Like there's no,
Yeah.
I kind of liked in the first couple seasons, like some people knew, some
Yeah,
didn't.
it definitely gets ridiculous to the point of like, really, this person now is an expert fighter and is part of his team. Like for some characters, you kind of buy it. Like, what's his name? Roy? Was that his? The guy who becomes Arsenal, basically?
Yes. Yeah, Roy Harper.
Yeah, you buy it. He's tough on the streets, he's a pretty boy model, but he's kicking people's ass and you buy it. But that's like his sister? Really?
Yeah.
Like
she in the off season, she finds out that she's like, I don't know if we want to get into spoilers, but yeah, she basically just gets trained.
I mean, it's like 2 years old at this point.
She gets trained off camera. All of a sudden, now she's an expert fighter.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, is this Green Arrow or this is Green Arrow and the Super Friends?
Yeah. It got to be a little much, and I can definitely see where it's going to go downhill. I'm kind of just holding on, like, oh, maybe I'll like it more than anyone else because I try to be an optimist. But
so the one thing I will say, and this is something we'll bring up in the script, is the reason I loved Flash more than Arrow is because Flash was a little bit more campy, but it knew it was campy.
Yeah.
It embraced
that's the thing that is kind of pushing me away. Like, I've seen the pilot, and I like the pilot, and I'm definitely more towards the melodrama of Arrow because it's a soap opera. Let's be honest. It's a soap opera with bows and arrows.
Exactly.
And like, I watched the pilot of Flash, and I enjoyed it, and I like the crossover episodes that I've seen on Arrow. And it's just like, I'm not a huge fan of camp, but I'm hearing that it is good enough. I do want to give it an honest watch.
Yeah, I think so. It was because for me, Flash, I loved, when they started getting into time travel and like they started getting into that kind of stuff, and I liked all the different metahumans. Whereas like Arrow, it kind of towards the end, I was just like, okay, this really just wants to be Batman.
Yeah, he is. He
really wants to be
100% Batman. And it's one thing. So like this script, and I would say like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, all seem to take place in a world that knows it's a comic book world.
Okay.
And what happened is like Batman got super serious. Like we had Batman Begins, and we had The Dark Knight in 2008, which the script is dated 2008. And this a lot of people attribute it to like post 9/11. Everything got a little more serious. But I mean, all those Spider-Man movies came out after 9/11, and they're bright colored movies. They're cheery. They're jokey. That third one maybe a little less so.
That's a whole podcast in itself.
Which I can defend that movie to a point. But yeah, I feel like the script, it feels a little throwback. Like it feels like we're in a world that we know is a little ridiculous. They're name dropping villains left and right, and
every page.
Yeah, and they're referencing other like capes and masks and stuff. So we know we live in a world where the DCEU wishes it lived in, where we have an established superhero base.
It's very interesting you say that because I actually didn't even look at the year that this was written. I knew you said it was a little bit older script, like a handful of years old, but 2008, that's very interesting to like picture that if this were to come shortly after Dark Knight.
Because if you look at 2008, we had Iron Man, we had Incredible Hulk, we had The Dark Knight, and Punisher Warzone.
I think so.
That was December.
Just when you said Iron Man and Dark Knight, I got chills. You know, that was that was a summer.
I'll say this: if you don't, 2008 might be the best year ever for movies. Just go look at the release calendar. I had this discussion with somebody else. I can't remember everything that came out. Hancock, I know, came out that year because I worked at a movie theater during this time.
Oh, okay.
Speed Racer came out. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, I think. I'm just trying to think of all the movies I saw for free.
Yeah.
I worked at a movie theater. I saw Iron Man like 3 times and fell asleep in the third time.
Yeah. The way I kind of talk about, because with superhero movies being so relevant now, and I'm a big comic book guy. Mm-hmm. I tend to side more with Marvel, but that's not because I hate DC.
No, absolutely.
It's just how the movies are being handled right now.
Yeah.
But when I talk about the comic book movies as themselves, I often describe them like, it's kind of like the 2008 was that landmark year. It's like pre-Iron Man and Dark Knight and like post-Iron Man and Dark Knight.
Batman Begins was definitely the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Because in my opinion, I think Batman Begins more encapsulates what Batman is than The Dark Knight did. But The Dark Knight's just a better movie. Like
it's funny.
It's tighter, better written. The Joker, obviously.
I just listened to one of your podcasts where you talked about that.
Yeah.
And no joke, what I've said to friends is, and usually this is in text form, I say Batman Begins is the best Batman in caps movie, and Dark Knight is the best Batman movie.
Yes.
You know? Like Batman Begins is so much Batman, and then Dark Knight is just a fantastic movie that has amazing. Batman in it.
Yeah. Everyone always says Nolan just wanted to make a cop movie with a cape, and that's what he did. But what's your history with Green Arrow? Did you read the comics? Did you get into it through the show? Or?
Yeah, Green Arrow, I did not know much about. It's funny. I think my first exposure to the character was the animated Justice League series.
Yeah,
where it started getting into Justice League Unlimited, and Green Arrow started showing up.
I bought Justice League Unlimited on Blu-ray last year. They have the whole series on Amazon for like $30.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, he's pretty front and center because they had it on Netflix too. We threw it up. I don't know if you saw our big TV when you walked in, but we threw it up there one day and watched like 4 or 5 episodes. A lot of Green Arrow on that show.
Yeah, because I watched a lot of Justice League, but when it started getting into Justice League when Unlimited when I was younger is kind of when I fell off.
Yeah,
but like that character, I was like, oh, there's a Green Arrow guy, but I did not know much about his background until the show came.
Yeah, and for me, it's a lot of the same. Like I was aware of Green Arrow, but my boss is the biggest Arrow fan, so he was the one who kept like harping on me to watch the show.
Yeah.
And then when I did, I loved it like immediately. But yeah, as far as like comic books and stuff, even now I don't read a lot of Green Arrow. I've tried.
Oh yeah, I've actually never read a Green Arrow comic book.
Yeah,
but I've read up a lot about the character and the backstory, and I've listened to podcasts, a Geek History Lesson.
I'm always looking for a good comic podcast. Is that a good one?
Oh, Geek History Lesson is one of my favorite podcasts because they literally just take a character from a movie, TV show, comic book, and then they do it like it's a class.
Really?
It's
okay,
an hour.
That sounds exactly like what I need. You said Geek History Lesson?
Geek History Lesson. We're just plugging other podcasts.
Yeah,
but
hey, which is fine. If they want to plug us,
yeah. If you're a nerd like like we are, it's a great podcast. But yeah, Green Arrow, I just like all I knew was that he had a bow and arrow. And I was like, is this the
in the Robin Hood
DC
comparison kind of thing?
Is this the DC Hawkeye? That's all I knew.
Yeah. I didn't even know about Hawkeye until the Avengers. I'll be honest.
And so when the show came around, I kind of put off watching it for like a year or two. I think season 2 had just finished when like season 1 was on Netflix. I was like, you know what? everyone's been saying it's good because I saw it was on CW, so I was like, oh, is it just a bunch of Abercrombie models?
I didn't watch what was that Superman show, Smallville, which
me
I don't like Superman basically. So
same here.
Yeah,
Preaching to the choir.
The only Superman book I would ever recommend is Red Sun, where he, instead of landing in Kansas, he lands in Russia and becomes communist.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. But
yeah,
other than that, to me, Superman was boring. Like the only DC character I love is like Batman and like the Batman related characters, because Nightwing's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've tried reading some Green Arrow stuff. I read the New 52, like the first volume, and it was all right, but it just didn't grab me.
Sure.
And I've tried reading. Kevin Smith did a run on Green Arrow. I tried reading that.
I want to read that one.
So much dialogue. What you expect from Kevin Smith?
I mean, it's funny. I'm a writer that one of my biggest notes is you have too much dialogue. So
I'm a pretty dialogue heavy writer myself.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's fine. Which we covered his Superman script a couple episodes ago. I don't know if you listened to that.
And I watched
Superman.
the doc.
Yeah, I watched that too. It's a great Superman script.
Yeah,
it's very dialogue heavy.
Yeah, it sounded like you said they made, because I was just listening to this, I think yesterday, the day before, whenever your podcast dropped, that they made Lex Luthor and like Lois Lane a bit more like appealing.
Yeah, they have a lot of back and forth in that script.
But yeah, like I'm the same with Superman. My biggest thing, and it's kind of like with Hulk too, but like Superman more so. I'm not a huge fan of when people, when their main power is like super strength, but it's like he can fly, he's
everything.
Bulletproof, laser vision. He can freeze stuff with his breath. Like he does everything.
And it's like a year or two ago, which is a weakness from his home planet, which doesn't even make sense. Like you're telling me they lived on a planet of this? I mean, I guess the idea is like, oh, it just takes away his powers, doesn't actually hurt him.
I don't know. It's just really bad withdrawals.
Yeah,
there was a drug on his planet.
Yeah, I never could buy into that.
Yeah, but it's funny. Like when Green Arrow got a show, I was so confused. I was like, this character I barely know.
I didn't even know it was Green Arrow for a time.
Yeah.
I knew there was a show called Arrow. I didn't really check into it. And then my boss was like, oh yeah, it's based on the comic book characters. I'm like, oh, so that's what made me check it out.
Yeah. But the first two seasons, especially, if you're a comic book fan, those first two seasons are really good. Like the beginning, you're kind of like, is this going to be corny?
Yeah.
But they kind of find their groove like a little way through the first season.
Yeah. And season 2 just really builds on what they build in the first season.
And they have Deathstroke.
Yeah. And Deathstroke is awesome. And honestly, my favorite part of that show is when they're on the island.
Oh, yeah. Because that was the thing, too, is in season 3. The first two seasons of the show, it's modern day, but then they flash back to what he was on the island for like 7 years or whatever.
And that's like kind of the concept of the show is they keep flashing back, and pretty much everything they flash back to relates to something going on in the episode. It's kind of that cheesy thing.
But season 3, they totally, like, spoilers, I know it's a few years ago, but they totally just took him off the island and he was in like Asia.
Yeah,
and then,
I'm in the middle of that
switched
stuff.
The opening to I was 7 years in hell. Not
oh,
the
did they
island.
actually change that?
Yeah, and I was
didn't
just
notice.
like, really? I thought it was supposed to be on
and
the
I guess
island.
after season 5, because it was 5 years he was on the island, they said they're not doing it anymore.
Oh,
that
really?
They're wrapping up all that island stuff. So I guess after like season 6, if that happens, there's going to be no more island stuff.
Interesting.
So that could change the dynamic of that show.
But yeah, so this Green Arrow Escape from Supermax.
Yeah, written by Justin Marks, and his name is not on the script, but David Goyer, who you might know as the writer of Batman v Superman.
Yeah,
but also his name is on The Dark Knight.
His name's on a lot of stuff.
Credit.
Yeah,
he did what? Blade, I think the first one. Maybe Blade 2.
I feel like almost every other few comic book movies, he's got his name somewhere in the 3 or 4
he's
people.
He's all over the DCEU right now, which is maybe a big sign of why it's not doing well. I mean, the big sign is you started off Man of Steel, which was a terrible movie, but he wrote that. He wrote Batman v Superman. His name's not on the script, which leads me to believe that maybe he was just the story guy, and this Justin Marks is the one who actually did the work.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've tried finding information on this, and basically all I could find is they wrote it and nothing ever happened with it. And Justin Marks, he had an architectural degree, so he talks a lot about the prison.
Oh, that's a big thing in this script.
And there's quotes out there of him saying, I designed this awesome prison. He's like talking about Icicle, the character, of like, oh, what are you going to do with this guy? Like he's super into his prison design. And honestly, I was really underwhelmed with all of the prison aspects of this script.
Yeah, it is I mean, I don't know where if you want to jump right in the beginning.
We might as well start from the beginning.
The opening speech. So it's pretty much like Ollie's friend is talking about like how he came back from the island.
Yeah,
and so it's
Ollie's friend is Will Hackett. I don't know. I didn't look this character up. I don't know if he.
Who is that?
Yeah, I don't know. Because I'm trying to think of his buddy was Tommy in the show.
Yeah, he was Tommy Merlin, the son of Malcolm Merlin.
Yeah, which was a great dynamic. I didn't look. I tried to look up as many characters as I could, but this is one I completely neglected.
Oh, there's too many to count in this.
Yeah, and like once I looked up like the first 5 or so villains that they introduced, I'm like, okay, these are all real villains. I'll assume that all of them are real.
I mean, I figured when you introduce that it's Green Arrow in a prison trying to escape, obviously you're going to have a lot of villains.
Yeah.
But like you said, there was just so many being introduced that
and
I was
a lot
like,
of them aren't Green Arrow villains, which is kind of the interesting aspect. Like some of them, like when you look up their Wikipedia page, it's like villain of this guy, Green Arrow, and so on and so forth. So there was a couple, but none of them were like main Green Arrow villains.
Yeah, and I mean, besides the show, I don't know a lot of Green Arrow villains.
Yeah,
and a lot of the ones in the show happen to be Green Arrow / Batman villains.
Yeah. I mean, it's like all the street level thugs just kind of share villains, except for their big,
all the
arch nemesis.
The billionaires that become vigilantes.
Yes.
They share villains.
Or lawyers that become vigilantes.
Yes.
Yeah, like we definitely get name drops of some big villains. Like I think we said earlier, the Joker and Lex Luthor are both name drops.
And Riddler.
And Riddler.
Enigma was here.
Yeah.
And I literally wrote, I made a Google Doc of, as I was reading, my little thing was, do they know this isn't Batman? Did they want this to be Batman?
I mean, it's definitely, so it was written after Batman Begins, so they already knew that was popular. And I don't know if Goyer had anything to do with that one. I don't think.
I don't believe so.
Because I know Nolan wrote all those movies, but Goyer just has story credit on Dark Knight.
He maybe like helped, but I feel like Nolan was just like, all right, I see what you're going for.
He might have had story credit on Dark Knight Rises, which again might explain some problems with that movie. But I guess we can just kind of brush through this beginning in the same way that the script does. But he is very quickly thrown in prison, and it's the class. There's a lot of cliches in the script. Like it's the cliche he was framed for murder. Mm-hmm. Somebody's using arrows to commit murder, so obviously the Green Arrow did it, and he just happens to be at the place when the police.
He's the only guy
in.
who can do things with arrows.
Yeah, obviously with that precision and everything, and there's not. So we get him at a party in the beginning, and it's the classic.
Speech about the character to give backstory,
and then we have to leave, or like he's gonna give a speech, but then like he hears some trouble going on, so I gotta go.
Yeah,
and
there's a bat signal in the sky.
Yeah,
or sorry, arrow signal in the sky.
Yeah. So he ducks out of his party, which classic rich guy move. And he goes, there's this colonel, and they have this organization called Checkmate, which is a really dumb name for. There's just a lot of things in the script. I was just scratching my head. Like,
it's one of those names that I can see, because sometimes I have these ideas as a writer. I'm like, this could either be amazing or the worst idea I've ever had.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground.
And I was waiting for them to like deliver on a pun or something. Like, why is it called Checkmate? And they never really do.
Yeah. So I noticed that in like the first 14 or so pages, they both said that Oliver Queen, or I should say Green Arrow, is a modern day Robin Hood. And they said it like twice. And I literally wrote, said modern day Robin Hood on page 14 again. We get it.
Yeah. You always get that comparison that he's modern day Robin Hood, but he's not. He's not giving people anything.
Yeah.
He's stopping crime. Like he uses a bow and arrow, but that's where the similarities begin and end.
Yeah, like wouldn't it make more sense like Robin Hood if he stole from rich people and gave it to the poor, like he was a criminal?
Yeah.
But like to save people, it was like, oh, Robin Hood's green and he has a bow and arrow, so he's a Robin Hood.
Yeah, like it was closer in the first season of the TV show where he kind of did do a little bit of that, didn't he? Because it was all you failed this city.
Yeah.
And he does take some money from some people, but actually I don't think he gives it to anybody. I think he funds it into his Green Arrow business.
Yeah.
But like that's closer to Robin Hood than anything I've ever seen him do before.
Yeah, so like one thing I noticed, and I remember because I started reading this a little bit before you, that within like 15 pages, I'm like, so much has happened, and not in a good way. Like,
it's a little hectic.
It's by page 16. Oliver Queen because we didn't know if this was supposed to be the first movie or a sequel.
Yeah,
to an
it's
origin.
like I said, it's kind of like Tim Burton, where he's already Green Arrow, and throughout the movie we get little hints of how he became. And you mentioned that to me, and there's definitely parts where I was kind of cool with it. I'm like, well, I like it because we are at the point now where just don't do an origin story anymore. Like, figure it out a different way. But
it was so quick.
Yeah. But it does kind of mix it up a little bit. Like, I like that he's already Green Arrow, but then we get a whole bunch of him in prison, and he's not actually being Green Arrow.
Exactly, it's Oliver Queen movie.
Yeah, so it's I missed it, and it's I guess you could compare it to, I'm trying to think of another superhero movie that does this, or like Daredevil. So the first season of Daredevil, he's in that black mask and shit the whole show, and that's the last episode where he gets his costume. It's kind of the same thing over the course of a movie where, I guess we do get him in the suit at the beginning, like a little bit, but then it's him in prison the whole time, and then we get the suit at the end. And it's kind of that little bit like, oh, at the end, he finally is Green Arrow again.
Yeah.
But
so I specifically marked, I was like, within 16 pages, we have been introduced to Oliver/Arrow, his lawyer best friend Hackett. He's already been arrested, framed for murder.
Introduced to the guy who's trying to buy his company.
Yeah, we saw the guy who was murdered. Like, we saw that in live time, and they've already been sentencing him.
Yeah.
In 16 pages.
Yeah. We get no trial. We just get he's arrested to he's going to jail.
Which, it's fine. I don't need to see.
Yeah, no.
But it just, the way it was reading was, because I saw it was like 115 pages or so.
Yeah, I think 116 was.
Yeah,
the
and I was like, wow. What is the rest of the script going to be?
I had this same thought. I was like, and then even when you get to the end and they're getting out of prison, I'm like, there's still like 20 pages left. Like, now what is it going to be about?
Exactly.
And yeah, it's really rushed. I honestly thought, like, because when you told me that he got into prison really quickly, I honestly thought it was going to open, like opening credits of him being booked in jail.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess it makes more sense to show why he's going to jail. But
or I thought they were going to do like the Deadpool thing where it's like introduce he's in prison and then
flashback
for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was like the flashbacks were like less than a page long whenever they
like
happened.
literally a paragraph. Like we get a flashback of him on the island like chasing a pig.
But 7 pages of the prison descriptions.
Yeah. Which I didn't find as hard to follow as I expected because I don't know, people probably don't read a lot of scripts. I mean, hopefully for the show they do. But some writers will go very in depth on environment, and some won't. Some will just be like, here it is, let them figure it out. This guy, he definitely tries to like design this awesome prison, and he's gonna tell you about it.
Yeah.
We got like
excited.
Yeah, we got shifting jail cells, which that was to me the hardest part to explain or to describe. Which,
like they're in like these cell pod things.
Yeah.
And then they said like every 9 days they randomize.
I thought it was every night they randomize. What is it? Is it
well,
every
like
9 days?
I think it moves, but because when we get further into the script, like they kind of say like there's a shift every 9 days, and so it just made me wonder: one, how long is he in prison like this entire movie? But like two, just like I don't know, like picturing how they would do that. Maybe the filmmaker producer side of me is just like, how would you do that?
Yeah,
that these cells move around.
Yeah, I get the idea, but I definitely couldn't build it in my head,
And just because this guy's over here and then he shifts over there, is that going to make him want to escape less? He's still in the same cell.
Yeah, it doesn't make, like, as much as this guy talks about his prison, a lot of it didn't make sense. And they do a lot of, so in the beginning, he gets introduced to this character named Split, who's kind of his buddy that's showing him around the prison. He's like, oh, well, everybody gets a jumpsuit correlating to what kind of power they have. Like,
and this is Red. He's the guy who gets you stuff.
Yeah, and because there's always got to be a guy who gets you stuff. And so he made a huge deal about this prison, but then you get all the same prison cliches. A guy who can get you stuff. And
a guy who hates everyone. And he's the bully.
And they inject these, like, devices into their arm because, of course, they do. And it's like, oh, it'll shock you. It'll go off if you fight, get out of line.
If you use your powers, if you're a metahuman. Because that's the one thing we forgot to mention. So Supermax is supposed to be a prison for metahumans.
Yes.
But there's only a select few humans that they sent here.
Yeah, which he's considered dangerous enough that they're just going to throw him in there.
Which one line I
like that idea.
Yeah, oh no, I like that idea. But there was literally a line that's like, well, that's worse than death.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's
the dialogue in this entire script is pretty rough.
Yeah.
It feels first draft, I would say, like maybe some placeholder dialogue, But there's no, because like I've read a lot of scripts where I've been like, ooh, there's like like the Superman script we did a few weeks ago. There's really good dialogue in there. I mean, it's written by a guy who specializes in that kind of thing. But there's definitely multiple times in this where I'm just like, there's no memorable lines.
Yeah. Well, like there's lines like Oliver says, like basically when his lawyer friend says, well, they're sending you to Supermax. He's like, I wrote in quotes, probably half of the inmates there are because of me. Little pompous, Oliver.
Yeah, seriously. Like you're the only
you
guy
who populated half a prison.
Yeah, one guy with a bow and arrow is doing more than Superman?
Yeah, all right. And then just like they try to do little moments like this is a bad place to be a good guy.
Yeah.
And it reminded me
so cliche.
It reminded me of Suicide Squad, especially in the trailers. But we're bad guys. I was like, you don't say bad guys. No. That's what we say when we're in fourth grade and we're playing with action figures.
The amount of times they say they're bad guys in Suicide Squad is embarrassing.
Yeah, and they do that in this script too.
Yeah, it's really poor. I'm gonna have to say. Like I love like having screenshots of dialogue for the podcast. There's nothing in this worth screenshotting to like read back. But I do like some of the characters are actually pretty interesting. Like I like the character of Split. I was legitimately bummed out, skipping ahead a little bit, when he died.
Oh, I had to go back and read. I was like, wait, did he just die?
Yeah, it comes out of nowhere. So because we get introduced, so they go to like the prison yard basically, and they're like, oh, everybody kind of can use their powers freely here a little bit, which I'm like, if this prison is for these kind of people and is so intense as they say it is, why are they allowed to use their powers at all? Like,
exactly.
There's so much leniency in this prison.
Especially when they say that, like, I think they called it, like, the parallax device.
Yeah, the parallax device is the thing that gets injected into their arm.
It's in their arm, and they say for metahumans that if you use a certain amount...
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you measure a superpower?
Like, does that... you can
throw fireballs just as long as they're the size of a kiwi, you know?
Yeah. And, like, I'm trying to remember some of the... Like, there's some people with like super strength and stuff. How the fuck do you measure that?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're only lifting 20 pounds instead of 100. So that's okay.
If this is worse than hell, why are they allowed to have a yard?
Exactly.
If this was worse than hell, that they're cuffed in their cell
the whole time
24/7.
And like they bring him to prison through all these really roundabout ways. Like, oh, we're going to knock you out and put you in a plane. Then we're going to knock you out and put you in a cargo thing. It's just like they build it up so much. And then it's just, oh, you're still going to be in the bathrooms alone. And you're still going to be allowed to leave a movie. For one, they have movie night. And you're going to be able to go back to your
cell. They have a football scene where they play touch football.
Yeah. And like a guy uses his powers to like multiply himself to play a football game. And I'm like, this doesn't seem that bad.
This seems like a normal like prison. It's just that there's superpowered people here, except for the shifting cells.
Yeah, and like the guards don't really seem to care, like because there's a scene where they're in a movie and he's asked to go back to his cell, which they let him do totally by himself. And he stops in another guy's cell to talk to him, and they're yelling at him, and he just keeps talking to the guy, doesn't stop.
Yeah,
and they're just like, "Hey, are you deaf?" And then he just like moves on. Like nobody cares.
Yeah, and I think one of my biggest things here. And there's only a couple moments when like they make up for it, which was like we said. So this is more so Oliver Queen in prison. You never really get to see Arrow because like 95% of the movie he doesn't have a bow and arrow.
Yeah, it's like 3 pages in the beginning and maybe like 8 pages at the end is him as the Green Arrow.
And my thing was, I was like, okay, if you're gonna take away the Green Arrow suit and the arrow, like you got to make him. Like Bruce Wayne.
Well, they do put him in a green jumpsuit.
You got to make him like Bruce Wayne, where he uses his brain. And there was one moment where like he's supposed to be in cuffs, and then like they turn around and he
just has the cuffs off. Yeah,
oh, he's holding the keys, and like it reminded me of, I don't know if you've seen the movie from the '60s, The Great Escape.
I know of it. I've never seen the whole thing.
There's an infamous moment where like they're in a World War II prisoner of war camp, and Steve McQueen's character like. They lock him in a cell. The guard walks away. He comes back, and Steve McQueen's holding up the keys. And he just like, you got me. Here they are. So little moments like that, I was like, I like this, Ollie. But then it was just, we said so many super villains, C-list, D-list. This is Split. This is Gemini,
Blockbuster.
Cascade.
I started taking notes of names, and eventually I was just like, forget it.
What was the Pied Piper's name? Mackett or?
Well, I just call him Icicle. But yeah, it's like I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's Mahkent, like McKent. Maybe?
Yeah. And
so I just started like once they had weird names, I just started putting their supervillain name, which he was Icicle.
Yeah.
Florinic Man. which I don't remember who that is. Count Vertigo, who's the guy he's the one guy who tried to escape and is now a vegetable, basically.
Yeah, and then like, okay, so like Gemini, who, bear in mind, most of these characters, besides Green Arrow, and then when Merlin comes in, I don't know those villains. Like, they describe the power.
I started Googling them, and I'm just like, okay, these are real villains, and that's kind of all I got.
So Gemini essentially is like Mystique from X-Men, or Morph, she's a shapeshifter into...
Which they don't even explicitly say until she finally does it.
Which, yeah, wouldn't that be like one of the top people you have to keep an eye on? Because she could just be a guard, or she could be Waller.
Or one of the top people you would try to recruit when you're going to escape, and he doesn't even want anything to do with her.
Yeah.
Not to mention she was the nicest person to him when he got brought in.
And then like they mention, Lex Luthor, they mention Riddler in the Hole.
Yeah, he gets thrown in solitary and it says Enigma was here or something like that.
So tidy thing about the Lex Luthor mention, they say that they had to make smart people take something to make them dumber.
And he says he thinks it's ganja.
So it was like, wait a minute. So I don't know why that cracked me up. It was like, all right, we got all of our smart villains here. Give them this pill that makes them dumber.
Yeah, that's so dumb.
And it was just like... of course, we eventually learned that lawyer Hackett on the outside, which is supposed to be Ollie's best friend.
Yeah, his best friend, his lawyer.
And when one tiny paragraph, he betrays him.
Yeah, he was the one who set him up, basically. And he's working with this Cross guy to basically, he wants to sell the company to Cross so he can be rich. Yeah. And I guess, okay, I misspoke earlier. There's like one line of dialogue I like in this movie, and that's later when he's explaining his motivation, is he says Oliver has the whole world and he can't share it, or won't share it. Which, it's very faint motivation for a villain. Like, of course he just wants to be rich, or whatever, but it's a decent line, and it's like, okay, I know what this guy's all about.
Yeah, and I guess it was just... then, to set up kind of like where the film's going to go, they're trying to shift the power from, like you said, from Queen to Cross to own Queen Enterprises. And they said he needs to be declared dead to shift ownership. And I was like, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
That's what I said in my head. It was so cheesy.
Where we were at the time for superhero movies, this was way too cliche to ever pass the bar.
Yeah.
We had already seen a very successful Spider-Man franchise, very successful Batman. X-Men was crushing it at this point. I'm trying to think where they were with X-Men. I guess Wolverine came out that year, I think, which we'll ignore that one.
The year before, because, around 2008, 2009 was the writer's strike, and that fucked up a lot of movies.
Because First Class, I think, was 2011.
Yes. So it was, like you said, it was a lot of Dark Knight, pre-Iron Man movies before the MCU.
Yeah.
Where it was very hit or miss. It was like X-Men would be good, but then we'd get a Ghost Rider.
Oh, God.
Spider-Man would be good, and then we'd get Daredevil with Ben Affleck. So it was very, like, flip a coin.
I only saw it once. I didn't hate that movie.
The movie was... From what I saw, I haven't seen it fully through.
I bought the director's cut on Blu-ray for like $5 at a Best Buy like 2 months ago. And I'm like, or I guess it was after the second season of Daredevil came out. I was like, I want to give it another shot.
Yeah. Everyone blames Ben Affleck, but it was the writer-director's fault.
Yeah, absolutely. Which Goyer might have had a hand in that too, if I recall. It's hard to keep track. If there's ever a
bad superhero movie, was Goyer involved?
Honestly, I have a friend that will immediately, because he's doing that Krypton show now. So I have a friend who's a huge Superman fan. Like, that's his all-time favorite. He saw Batman v Superman and was so pissed off that he's just like we were all talking about it on Twitter, like, oh, what'd you think, blah, blah, and he was so quiet for the longest time. He was like, I just can't anymore. I fucking hated it. And he's like, I'm so mad, and he will not see any DC movie, which hats off to him. Don't support it. I'm the sucker that I'll watch anything. I'm probably going to go see Wonder Woman. Even though I don't like him, it's like, when am I ever going to get this opportunity again? You know?
Yeah.
But I don't know where I was going with that.
No, I mean, so there was another little line of dialogue. Like, I had to, whenever one was super cheesy, I had to write it in quotes.
Yeah.
There was a part where Ollie's kind of talking to Split and other people, and I think he's trying to start forming his escape posse in a way. Yeah. And someone says something, he's like, sorry, I'm not a villain.
Yeah. This script tries so hard to ham-fist in a subplot of who's really good, who's really a villain, and a lot of not a lot, because it caught me off guard every time. So the main like bad guy who gets involved with the escape is this guy Hartley, who I don't know. I didn't look him up to see if he's a major villain of
totally
anything.
Forgot about him almost.
Yeah, well,
was that Pied Piper?
I think that might have been who it was. And his power is basically he seems to be able to manipulate animals.
Yeah.
Because he first starts talking to Ollie through ants.
And I was really just like, where's Paul Rudd?
Yeah. It's because basically Ollie's in solitary confinement and these ants come in and they start forming words on the ground. And through his power, he can hear Ollie as he talks to the ants, which, all right. And the ants, like, just shape his conversation.
Very convoluted just to have a conversation.
Yeah. And the script's like, hey, we're just going to split screen this. And so they can just talk.
Yeah.
So he's the one kind of helping him set up the plan. Because Split doesn't really want anything to do with it. He's a little scared. So they start putting together a team, and it's kind of, I got a little excited. I'm like, oh, it's going to kind of be like Ocean's 11, but with like super villains. And I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And it never really happens.
Like the idea, like you said, is very fun because you're thinking of movies like, Shawshank Redemption, where he's planning to escape, or you're thinking of, like you said, criminal teams like Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
But like, I think what didn't work for me was the fact that these were all, at least on the page, maybe on the screen it would be different, but on the page you were introduced so fast. All their powers are very generic, except for Pied Piper, who he's doing the ants talk thing. And I remember I wrote down on page 42, he literally says, tell me how you become Green Arrow. And I was like, so this is the origin.
And it's like 2 seconds worth.
Flashbacks to the island. And they say he was only on the island for 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
Which I know, I'm a privileged white kid who... I've never been on a deserted island for 3 years, but like to me, that doesn't sound like a lot compared to Batman.
And they don't show
missing
him
for 7 years.
Yeah, and they don't show him do anything on the island. They show him try to hunt a pig, like he throws a spear or something, or I guess he tries to shoot an arrow. We never learn how he becomes a master fighter or a master artist because he's very confident in his abilities. Anytime something comes up, he's just like, I got this. And he kicks somebody's ass or, handles a bow. But we literally see a scene of him shooting and missing a pig, and then a scene of him shooting and nailing a pig, and no in between of how he got there.
Yeah.
So
at least in the show, someone kind of trained him to be better.
Yeah.
Whereas, so was he by himself that whole time?
Yeah. And... well, I guess we do get a hint of another person later, which I guess we can cover that later.
Yeah. And so it was right around this time where we are introduced to Merlin. Which they reveal he was the one in the teaser kind of opening 5 pages. He's the one that actually did the murder.
Did you assume that as soon as, because that was my assumption just because of the TV show?
Because that's okay. I think that's one problem I'm not a fan of with the show, the CW shows is, and MCU movies do this too, is when the villain does the exact same thing as the hero, but like bow and arrow.
Bad.
Yeah. It's like
he uses his bow to murder.
Merlin even says, "You are green. That's a stupid color."
Yeah, and he's like his reasoning is like, I don't want to be second best anymore.
Yeah, and it's just such an obscure talent.
Yeah.
That,
and Merlin is like, if I know the comics correctly, Merlin is his like Joker. That's his arch enemy.
Yeah, the Black Archer is supposed to be his main villain,
and he's
kind of a joke in this.
Yeah, he does very little. We don't. I guess we get the assumption that he framed Oliver just because Hackett asked him to, because Hackett's the one that gets him sent to jail because they want to kill him, so they're going to use Merlin to try to kill him. And we don't get much of that relationship. We don't.
Yeah.
There's one action scene with them that doesn't even last very long.
Oh my god, I wrote that. I was like, wait, did I blinked and I missed it?
Yeah, and that's kind of the trend for all of the action scenes up until the end.
That could be the writing style. I mean, I have read some scripts where like they're like, and this is where the director and the stunt coordinator takes over.
My example I always jump to is if you watch Family Guy, the episode where Lois kills Stewie and Stewie kills Lois or whatever. When they have their big epic fight in the White House, I don't know if you watch that show or have seen this. I listened to the commentary on that episode, and they said in the script it literally just says they fight, Stewie gets the upper hand. But it's like this long, crazy fight with all this insane choreography, and they're like, yeah, that's like the animators and stuff. Like that's all we wrote in the script. So yeah, some people will definitely expand on it a little bit, and other people are just like, oh, this is what it is. Because there's another fight scene in the showers where Blockbuster comes out. So they say Blockbuster, he's this big guy with
Juggernaut.
Yeah, basically. And he attacks them in the shower, and he basically just electrocutes them, and that's it.
It's like a 2-second fight scene.
Yeah.
And then he grabs a towel and has a one-liner. And
yeah, it's I don't know. It was like this middle portion of the script that very like they rush the beginning.
Yeah, they rush introducing all the characters. They rush putting the team together, and then the end kind of drags.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like we know you're gonna build a team for the escape, and like not saying I wanted them to rush through the characters, but I wrote like near page 60, it feels like we went from only a couple characters in the first 15, 20 pages to like 40 characters in 40 pages, and I can't keep up. And I'm trying to wonder, like, as I'm reading, like, okay, they introduced Blockbuster. Is he going to be a big role, or is that the only thing? Is Gemini? Is she going to be important?
Character importance seems to shift throughout. Because like we get introduced to Icicle pretty early on, and then he's absent for a big chunk of the script.
Even Split, there was a big drop off of where Split was. He introduced Ollie to the prison, and then he literally had a line on page 57. But I'm just a C-list villain.
Yeah, he literally said that.
And I was like, all right, is this meta? Like, just between writers?
Totally forgot about that. Yeah, that was a groan-worthy line. He's just saying what everybody's thinking as they're watching the movie.
And like you said, when you first introduced your Split, you're like, oh, he's going to be an important character because he's introducing Ollie to the world. He's kind of his little sidekick. And then he's gone.
Yeah.
And then he comes back.
Yeah, but like for the short time you have him, he's kind of endearing. Like he's he's the guy, he's the one who's introducing him. So we get a little more time with him in the beginning. And then like I said, I cared enough about him that when he does finally get killed, I was like, "Oh man, like I kind of missed him."
It kind of reminded me of like you guys watch Breaking Bad, right?
Absolutely.
So like when you're in Jesse's kind of storylines, there's Badger and Skinny Pete.
Yes.
And it's like Split was that where he's like there, but he's kind of comedic relief.
Yeah.
He's only there just for when the main character
But he might have like
needs.
the best power out of all of them, which he's Nightcrawler basically.
He can teleport.
Yeah.
Isn't that the one guy you need?
Yeah, and I guess he can phase through walls too, because like when you first get introduced to him, and it's the introduction of the parallax device too, is like they're walking in line and a door closes as he's coming through, which it seems weird. And then he just walks through it, and he's like, "Uh-oh, they're not gonna like that one." Then he gets zapped by his fucking device.
Yeah, and I don't know. It just, to me, I understand you don't want to make people with too weird powers, because the one note I had, there was one character who he literally tattoos something on his arm. So like he tattooed a snake, and the snake came to life.
Yeah, he could bring his tattoos to reality, basically.
And so like, okay, I'll give him props.
That's the guy who can get you any. Okay, I will say, when they introduced a character that could get you anything, I thought it was dumb until you find out that it's his superpower. Then I'm like, okay, I'll give you that one. Like,
so like that to me, I was like, okay, props for originality.
Yeah.
But then so many of the other characters are like the bare bones, like ice powers. That's Iceman. You know, teleporting. Gemini who
Cascade can
morphs
turn into
people.
water.
Yeah, and it was just like, couldn't you come up with more unique? At least Pied Piper. It is weird how you can talk to animals, but
also,
it's at least different.
Also, Jin, the guy who's like can go into computers and be the Matrix, basically.
I forgot that was his name.
Yeah,
I was going to bring him up.
Yeah,
I literally wrote, it seems like these powers are the powers of convenience.
It's very much like we need, like, what's a scenario we might run into? There's probably somebody here who has a power that can help us with that obstacle.
Yeah, because
it's very convenient.
When they introduced these devices, the parallax device in their arms, it was like, okay, obviously they're going to need someone that shuts down the power of the prison.
Yeah.
Here's the guy who does it.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, it seems like we're on an island. Who can get us across water? Let's get this guy who can freeze water.
We need someone who teleports, get Split.
We need someone who can control the currents. That's what Cascade was there for.
Oh, yeah, the currents.
Yeah, like, what are you going to... You're going to have the current push you to land?
Yeah, so...
But I do like how they formed the team, and jumping ahead a little bit, none of their powers end up mattering.
Oh, yeah.
Because then it's like, oh, shit, we're in Antarctica. Like, none of this is going to be helpful.
Yeah, that was an interesting twist I was going to ask you about, because the prisoners are led to believe that they're... I don't know if it's like some sort of screen.
He seems to be like... It's like a dome with like a... I guess like a screen.
That it makes them think that they're on some sort of island.
Yeah, like they have like a... From what I understand of the prison, you got like a big circular area, and it's a giant like tube that goes up to like a window or a dome. And in the dome, they can see a sky, and that's basically it. And Ollie determines that because of like pigeons that are flying in the area and stuff like that it's like an island in
We
got to
come back to the pigeon shit.
Yes, we are 100% going to come back to the pigeons, and not even just the pigeon shit. But the fact that why would like so the twist is like when they finally get out, they find out they're in Antarctica and everything was like an illusion. And why would they go through all the effort to trap all these pigeons there to fool them about that? Like that seems so excessive.
Yeah. Unless they're hologram pigeons. Oh wait, no,
Yeah.
they shit. So they're not holograms.
because he collects their pigeon shit.
Yeah, so that was an interesting twist that I could see.
It was definitely a moment when I read it. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. Because like, I wasn't expecting it.
There are certain twists, and this is for all scripts. It's not just, I don't want to seem like I'm just bashing this writer, but like some twists, it's hard to communicate that into written form.
Yeah.
Like when you describe it, it's one thing, but to actually like we're reading this story, we're following these characters, and then to say that like, okay, they've fallen under the belief that they're on an island, but then they bust through, they're in Antarctica.
Yeah, and the way it was written in the script, I was legitimately like, oh, I did not see that coming. Like some writers will just like literally put it in all caps and be like, oh, snap, this is what actually happened.
Which this writer did do. He would do stuff in bold and then underlined. Like I think it was towards the end when Ollie realizes that his best friend betrayed him. It's like he puts it all together.
And it's the whole sentence is underlined. Yeah, that did happen. But yeah, I've definitely read scripts where you see the twist coming, but this one legitimately, I was reading that part really late at night. Maybe it just didn't click with me.
So should we talk about the escape sequence? Like,
yeah. But first, one thing I can't believe we didn't mention: Amanda Waller's in this movie.
Oh yes.
Which is really surprising. I don't think they do her character justice. That's again the only good thing I'll say about Suicide Squad is they did that character justice in the comics.
I was afraid of her.
Yeah, she's a stone cold bitch, and Viola Davis was perfect in the role. But this version, she just runs the prison. She's the warden.
Yeah, and she works with that checkmate.
Yeah, which is, still don't understand the name of that.
Yeah, because that's one thing. Like you said, Viola Davis. I was like, holy shit, she is good.
She's great.
Despite the rest of the movie, she's good in this. And then I don't know the actress's name who plays Amanda Waller on Arrow. But I
used to know.
She's all right.
She does a serviceable job.
She could be worse.
It's a different interpretation of the character, like a little bit, but
and like when they introduced her, I was like, okay, is she going to be a big part of this, or is this a cameo?
Yeah,
and she's
here, like here and there.
So when
I expected more of her, I will say,
because what confused me is like do we want to talk about the escape sequence or the Merlin when he tries to kill Ollie?
Let's talk about that because that leads directly into the escape sequence.
So basically, Cross and Hackett, the evil manipulating villains, they put Merlin in jail,
and they have a guard under their pay, which is
on their payroll.
Perletti, I think his name is.
Yeah, Pernetti.
Something that sounds
like that.
super Italian.
And so basically, Waller, after everything's going down, she finds Merlin and she's like, we need to look at the security footage. I thought she was going to be the one that put it together, that Oliver was framed. Yeah. But then she doesn't.
That was really weird because
they set it up perfectly. I was like, okay.
They totally set up because they get this guard and they question him, and you totally get the idea that she gets it now. But then later he ends up like jumping. I know I'm jumping all over the place.
Oh, it's understandable.
She ends up throwing him back in prison, and like there's no mention of it.
Yeah,
like I know these people were trying to kill you for some shady reason, but you're still a criminal.
Because like they set it up perfectly. So there's the 2-second action sequence between Merlin and Ollie where Merlin basically out of various supplies MacGyver's himself.
Yeah. MacGyver's definitely a word in my notes.
It's a verb. He MacGyver's himself a crossbow and arrow because this is Green Arrow.
Compound,
which was funny. They went into big detail on what was made out of it. It was like, I don't care what made it.
Yeah.
The fact that he has one, that's the key thing.
Yeah.
And basically, she's questioning why he has this, and between Merlin and Oliver, he admits that he killed the guy in the beginning. He's like,
100%.
I love that I framed him, and I wanted to see you go down, but I wanted to be the one to kill you. And so when she says check the security cameras, I was like, oh, she's going to check the footage.
She's going to put it together. Never happens.
Too much footage to comb over.
When it gets to the point where he gets put back in prison, I'm like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. And I thought maybe that it was going to be like a workaround plot to get, Hackett? Is that his name?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be like they were going to trick him, but no, like it's totally like she ends up going down too at the end. And
Yeah. So she was a villain? You know,
I don't know.
I always thought that she was kind of like the Nick Fury, but like sort of more villainy version of Nick Fury in DC.
She's definitely like Nick Fury on steroids.
And I thought
as far as evilness.
Because like in the show, they kind of make you believe it's like, okay, she's the one that she's not afraid to like if someone dies. Like there's a part where these old Irish guys, we'll get into that, in Antarctica that help the Ollie and the villains.
Another moment?
Yeah, and she basically like is not afraid to, you know, blow people up or sacrifice her own men to
which
the greater
Suicide
good.
Squad did that really well when she shoots all those guys in that room.
Yeah. And so I thought it was like, oh, well, she's going to redeem herself for all of this torture of Ollie by figuring it out and then letting him go. And then I was like, wait, is that supposed to be one of another twist? Is that she doesn't put it together?
Yeah.
So either she's dumb, ignorant, or
all of the above.
Yeah, it just, to me, it really
just
faulted
really
her character.
sold on the fact that no, because she says that she was friends with the guy he was framed killing. And she's just like, no, we got the guy and she wants justice. And I guess is just blind to it.
Yeah.
But literally when they're laying evidence in front of her and they question a guard she seems to have a reason to want to question him. And she just totally doesn't even pick up on it.
Yeah, she's more just so mad about that someone made a compound bow.
Yeah, like how did this happen?
How did this happen? Well, you just had like 6 guys escape. So
and then
a compound bow is the least of your problems.
Yeah. I will say the escape is the most entertaining part of the script.
It's very interesting because this is where we started talking about that they're on Antarctica. But so we briefly mentioned it earlier. Split dies.
Blockbuster, like so
in a split second,
literally. So all the it's kind of one of those moments where they're escaping. They put the Matrix guy into the system so it will disable their parallax devices, but it also opens all of the cells.
Yeah.
So it's basically riot
chaos.
Yeah, which they say chaos multiple times.
Yeah.
Just to let you know how bad it really is.
Yeah.
And I just thought of this scene from Cabin in the Woods when the monsters explode into the room of carnage. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've seen most of it. Yeah.
Oh man, if you've not seen the end of that movie, it is amazing.
But yeah, so chaos is going, and so there's this moment where
they're all like the team gets together and they're all running.
They're
library.
running. It's like this is their moment. They're going, and then there's like I literally like a line of dialogue. I didn't write down the exact words, but basically like a fist goes through Split's chest, and I was like, what? And then it's Blockbuster, and he's probably just like, well, I wanted to escape too. It's like, but did you need to kill him?
No, you really didn't.
And so wait, you punched through his back.
Yeah, and it's literally the guy they needed to escape.
And Oliver says that. He's like, well, you just killed the guy who teleports.
Yeah, and because I guess he was going to phase through a door and open it or whatever, but then Blockbuster just destroys it and kind of like, hey, me too, guys.
But what really kind of ticked me off was, so like they introduced Split as like this lovable sidekick, and Oliver does not
He's
give
kind of
a
an
shit.
asshole.
He just literally says, well, you killed the guy who teleports, and they move on, and they all just forget that Split died.
It's a lot of he looks down on everybody. Like he needs their help, but he looks down on them because they're villains and he's a hero.
Yeah.
And like I said, they really try to shove in this theme of who's really the hero, who's really the villain. Like
maybe Ollie was like, well, he was just a C-list villain.
Yeah. It doesn't go anywhere. There's never a realization, and I don't know what that realization would even be of he's just like them. Like no, he's not.
Yeah,
they're not like him either.
Yeah, and so like you said, so Blockbuster, basically the door that Split was supposed to phase through, he just pretty much just punches it.
Yeah, punches through it.
And so they're getting through their escape, and then they eventually get to. This is when they get to Antarctica.
Foggy of the order of things.
Yeah, the order is kind of all over the place, but like when they get to basically, holy shit, this is Antarctica.
Yeah,
and the water girl, doesn't she just literally freeze up?
She freezes
and then
she gets shattered because they introduced this like not like a hit squad, but basically the team that's supposed to go bring them back.
The Checkmate Brigade.
Yeah. And so they're coming out of Antarctica, and there's like a hangar that opens up, and they're all chasing them. Yeah, she freezes as soon as they get out there, and they're shooting at them, so she gets shattered. And then Oliver manages to take out 3 vehicles with a single arrow.
Yeah, but what was
Which
funny,
I guess are like snowmobiles.
a lot of these deaths are very glossed over.
Yeah. And
Which
it's
Cascade
kind of,
was not supposed to be like Split, but she did die. This wasn't just she was knocked out and she's caught. She's dead.
I expected a moment where like, oh no, like she's just water so she can come back. But no, she's just gone.
They just move on.
Yeah. And the same thing was like literally once Split dies, it's kind of like, all right, now they kind of start going one by one.
Yeah, they're red shirted off.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to think the next one that goes, I think, is the guy who talks to rodents.
Pied Piper. I don't know his name in the script. Hartley,
yeah.
but he's more. Then they all of a sudden it shifted to where he's kind of like the sidekick.
Yeah,
to where like there's
he
this
kinda takes that
mutual.
place.
He's like, Oliver, if you get out, don't forget about us.
And he tells him, he's like, I once tried to nuke a city. And he's like, do you still want to hang out with me, basically? Check yes or no. And Oliver's like, well, do you feel bad about it? And he
like,
says,
every day.
Every day. And it's like, okay, then I guess you're fine.
Long as you feel bad about it.
Yeah. Like,
you know Hitler with the whole Holocaust thing.
Yeah.
Long as you feel bad about it.
yeah, there's just, I don't
took
know
it to
what
a
they
place.
were going. Yeah. I just don't know what they were going for. Like, there's like they throw out 2 lines of dialogue of like, oh, this prison is too inhumane. It really doesn't seem that bad.
No, it's weird. It shows scenes of where it's trying to be like, this is worse than hell, but then it's just like, this is a normal prison.
Yeah,
it would shift between tones of Guantanamo Bay and then like the Longest Yard. Like
Yeah.
if you've seen that
It's actually
movie,
a really good comparison.
like
They're
this-
even playing football.
like it was so
Like they even get to use
either
their
it's hell, or
powers.
it's either it's hell or it's not.
Yeah, and they never show it. They never show us it actually being hell.
But then it's just like, if it's hell, it's inhumane. Well, you get to play football. I mean, sure, like
you get to watch movies.
when they throw you in the hole or confinement, solitary confinement,
Yeah.
that does seem pretty bad. But it's just like,
Yeah.
don't most prisons have a version of that?
No,
It just-
absolutely.
So is it really that inhumane?
They never show us it being that bad. That's the problem.
I would have rather, instead of
Even
them
the guards, there's no moment where like a guard beats a prisoner or anything
Yeah.
like that. Like that's a really easy thing you could go to.
I think one thing could have been.
That's just my wife.
One thing could have been, instead of regular guards, the guards are other metahumans.
Yeah.
You know, then it's just like, well, we really can't get out because they have powers too.
Yeah.
Or something like, don't try to make us think it's hell, but then you give them all these privileges. It's got to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And I would have rather it just being, it's Supermax because it is protecting metahumans from escaping.
Yeah.
But it doesn't need to be the worst place ever.
No, and they keep saying it is the worst place ever, and as far as I read, it doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah. And so like we said, they're in Antarctica, and it's that we said it's a pretty good twist. It was written a little weird.
This is the chunk of the script I liked. Like from the point of they start the escape and the riot to the thing we're about to talk about is kind of my favorite part of the script.
So basically, Oliver is like he has a map, and
Yeah.
they're trying to get out from Antarctica, but they're all obviously freezing, and
Yeah.
like they start passing out, and then they wake up in like
Which-
a bunker.
Oh, fuck, I didn't even think about that. Why would they bring him to the bunker? Well, I guess maybe waiting for backup.
But so it's like supposed to be like this Irish old man.
He says like it's Ireland's last outpost in Antarctica.
Yeah,
But it turns out they're just checkmate guards in disguise.
exactly. And and then I think they even said it was a trap.
Yeah.
Admiral Akbar
Like
from Star Wars. It's a trap.
He's looking. I actually wrote. I think I have a note that just it's a trap, and that's. Oh, I said it's a trap station. Sorry, but which trap station's my new band name. But literally, he finds out because he's looking at his bookcase, and he has his fucking manual for the checkmate, like in his bookcase.
If you're gonna start working at Checkmate, you got to read the manual.
Yeah,
what manual?
I didn't know there was mercenary manuals. Like it's so ridiculous.
That's a movie, Mercenary Manual.
Yeah. Like it's just like so it immediately like goes to hell. So everybody kind of starts
This is
turning
where
on each other.
That's where they shoot Hartley / Pied Piper.
Yeah, he just because it's 2 guys like his dad and like a dad and a son or whatever, and the dad just shoots Hartley like right in the chest.
And this where it's basically down to Oliver Gemini, and then Blockbuster, right?
Blockbuster and Icicle, because Icicle
I keep
makes
forgetting
it to the
he's
end.
there.
Yeah, because he at one point he tried to kill Ollie. Like as soon as they start escaping, and Cascade, he like shoots an icicle at him, and Cascade catches it, and she's like, "We still need him," or whatever.
Yeah.
Which he immediately tried to kill him. Like,
Yeah.
they let him out of his cell. Doesn't even wait 30 seconds.
It's funny you mentioned that because now I'm forgetting how Icicle gets killed off.
He doesn't.
Oh,
he
he
actually
doesn't?
makes it.
See, oh no, I'm thinking of Blockbuster. Basically, there's a scene where they're like,
He screws them over. Like they're gonna escape through this like tunnel, like a ladder that just goes up for apparently 9 years. And he goes through and then crushes the exit, so they can't follow.
yeah,
And then he's just kind of like, everybody for themselves, ha ha ha. And he climbs up. And then they escape through, like, the guy had like a snowcat or whatever.
Yeah.
So Gemini, Icicle, and Ollie escape on that thing.
okay.
And
yeah.
as they're escaping, we were seen earlier that the place was wired with C4.
Waller's
and Waller
like, fuck
remote
these
detonates
guys.
it.
Which, quick moment. So Waller says she's going to blow it up, and it cuts to, so like the Irish old guy, who seemingly was good taking them in, but he's a checkmate officer. And apparently his real son, they crawl towards each other, like to hold one another, and then they blow up.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute.
It's real dark.
Yeah. It just was like, were we supposed to care about them?
I
Are we
guess.
just supposed to show how
Well,
cruel
they were
Waller
nice
is?
enough to not let him freeze to death, I guess.
Yeah. Only to set them up for a trap.
Yeah.
You know.
And then
They gave him
Blockbuster-
some nice hot oatmeal.
Yeah. And Blockbuster's also killed during that because he's climbing up the ladder, and it's that classic. He looks down, is like, "Uh-oh," and then the fire's coming up.
It's one of those moments because like maybe it's the way I write. When someone dies, I say "and they die," you know, because I want to be clear. Whereas like it said like Blockbuster engulfed in flames. I was like, okay, does he die or is he?
Yeah, they
I
don't-
mean, he has super strength. Is he invulnerable to
I think
things?
they
I don't
say
know.
he's like viciously engulfed in flames or something.
Yeah.
they add an adjective in there that gives you the hint. Oh, like, oh, he's probably dead.
Yeah, and so now we're down to Ollie, Icicle, and Gemini.
Yeah, and they escape to basically the shipping area in Antarctica.
Yeah, the
And,
freight yard,
yeah,
the local Antarctica freight yard.
yeah, and they hide in a cargo thing, which obviously Waller knows where they're going, so they have a team there checking it out. But
Which-
Icicle's freezing. They're thermal scanning.
They're
the
thermal
things.
scanning, which I'm sorry, I know
You
there's
know
a lot
who
of crates.
escaped.
like you only have so many crates.
Yeah,
I
Open 'em.
understand the thermal thing, but like you said, one of them has the power to change what she looks like, basically Mystique.
Yeah,
Do you need to?
no, that's fine.
All right. And then, like you said, Icicle's the other one.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you just open the crates and look? Because
Yeah.
they're just sitting in the trash.
Yeah, and I think he says like, "Oh, we normally only do this with like 8 of them," and she's like, "Oh, well, you're doing all of them today." Like, just open them. How long could it possibly take?
Yeah.
But this brings us back to Star City. I think that's the Green Arrow City. And we get a little moment with Icicle, and he's just like, "Oh, you're gonna let me go or whatever." And Oliver is like, "Hey, I'm a man of my word," but then he pulls him in. He's like, "But you don't make me fucking have to break your nose again." Or I can't remember what he says.
He
but-
basically just says like, "I'm giving you the chance. Don't make me regret it." You
Yeah.
know, something like that.
Yeah. And Gemini, she's just like, "Hey, look, I got nowhere to go." Like she mentions throughout the script that she has a daughter, and that's who she wants to get back to.
But
she's-
they're as soon as they get there, they're on the run because like the cops are looking for him, and
Yeah.
she's like, "This is going to be our life. We're just going to be running.
Yeah.
What's the point?" And I just want to be like, you can teleport into someone else.
seriously.
But then, not long later, they're running, and she transforms into an old Chinese woman.
Yeah.
Which that's how they
Where'd
describe
she get
it.
the bag of groceries? That's what
An
I wanted
old,
to know.
an old Chinese woman, and the fact that you could just do that
All
You
the
could-
time. They never established that there's like a time limit to it.
Yeah, morph into other people. Like even if it's not the same person, just flip flop and you just hide. Why?
Yeah.
You have the easiest power to get away.
Seriously. And Ollie, he's just got to hide. But his first idea is to go to his buddy. Who would be the first person to where
would
first
they-
place you would look? So he goes, or I guess he doesn't go to him. He calls him to him.
Yeah, which like one thing I want to say because comparison to the TV show he has like his own posse.
Yeah.
But in this movie, the only person that he seems to interact with besides villains in the prison
Is
Hackett. And so, but then in the beginning of the script, Hackett knows he's Green
Yeah,
Arrow.
it's never been a secret to him.
And so like it makes me really curious. Like
But yeah, like he seems to only have this one friend who's like, if he knew he was the Green Arrow the whole time, he could have done this a long time ago.
Yeah. Oh, and we almost forgot. Some point during the sequence, pigeon shit explosives.
Oh, yes.
I made a note of it because I was like, what am I reading?
Yeah. Because at one point he starts collecting pigeon shit, and you're just like, why?
Obviously, this is going to come into play.
Yeah. And I totally forgot about it until it happened, which at one point he steals like a handful of salt from
salt packets. Which they're allowed salt and
this prison seems not that bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he uses these salt packets in combination with old pigeon shit. Apparently that's explosive. I would love to see the Mythbusters on this.
Yes, I was just going to say Mythbusters. And I loved it because this is how I would have wrote it when it happened. She's like, what's that? And he's just like, pigeon shit. He doesn't say like pigeon droppings because, he just says it's pigeon shit. And then he throws it and it explodes. And but the concept of it.
Yeah. And then I love in my notes, I just have pigeon shit bomb.
Yeah. It's a very peculiar thing to come up with. I wonder, like you said, if it works. And also, like, how did the writer find that out?
Yeah.
He, like, said most obscure
I want to see
things.
His Google search history.
Most obscure things that make a bomb.
Yeah.
I feel like the CIA is like, why is this guy looking up how to make a bomb?
Which I'll admit, when I'm writing a script, sometimes my Google search history gets a little crazy, but nothing like that.
It just made me want there to be a villain like the pigeon shit bomber.
Yeah. Like, I'm trying to think. In Ultimate Spider-Man, they kind of turned the Shocker into like the D-list fucking street criminal. Like he just shows up and gets beaten in one
He's
panel.
a joke in the...
Yeah. And that's kind of what I picture the pigeon shit bomber as being some one, like, he's robbing a jewelry store and trips on the way out, and that's how he gets caught. Like, that situation.
It was just a moment. I couldn't believe we almost forgot about it because...
Yeah. It's ridiculous. I would love to see the Mythbusters on that.
It's very weird. And so basically it gets to a point, like we said, Oliver goes to Hackett, but that's where he puts it all together that Hackett set him up.
Because Gemini is watching, and she sees a bunch of guys with like radios and stuff, like, oh, it's a trap.
Yeah, and basically he gets, which one thing too, I understand why, these checkmate guards or cops, like why they have the radios, but it's the biggest giveaway that you're a cop is when, because it literally said in the script, they all have, normal clothing, but they all have earpieces.
Yes.
So it's the biggest giveaway.
It reminds me of the Daniel Craig James Bond movies, which whenever somebody has an earpiece, he's like, stop touching your ear. Like,
yeah. Well, which, I'm sorry, couldn't you just like disguise the earpieces as like earbuds, like you're wearing like the iPhone earbuds?
Or they even have like skin colored ones that you wouldn't even notice.
Because everyone has headphones in when they're walking in like a city
they're
street.
all Bluetooth now, right?
Yeah. Oh, make it look like a Bluetooth.
Yeah.
But it's when it's the
or just use
secret service. Yeah. It's like a secret service like wire.
Yeah, you
that
got
goes
the wire
down.
going down to a pack somewhere.
So she realizes that something's going up, and basically they get caught again. And this is where we said Amanda Waller throws him back into solitary confinement.
Yeah, immediately. Like there's no dialogue between them. There's no okay. So we need to talk about the switch. Because I don't know when that happens. So there's a scene. So
I thought Gemini died.
No. So
there's an explosion.
Yeah. So Ollie goes to confront Hackett as like his apartment. That leads to a roof chase, which leads to guards shooting at them, and they're like ducked behind like a concrete barrier or something, and they like share a look and like a nod, like they know what they're gonna do.
Oh yeah.
And she goes one way, he goes the other, and I'm assuming that's when the switch happens, but. Because literally we follow Ollie, like, so she jumps into like a staircase or whatever, and there's like an explosion, and it's like we don't know what happens to her basically, and then Ollie chases after Hackett up until the point where he gets arrested. We never break scene with Ollie, so is that Gemini chasing him the whole time?
See, I don't.
Did Ollie somehow change into Gemini, and like he doesn't have that power?
And this is kind of jumping back a little bit. So the first time we saw Ollie in solitary confinement, they pointed out how like it was like a month or something. So it
was like 6 weeks.
He was withered away, and he grew a beard.
Yeah.
And so then it cuts to the end where he's thrown in solitary confinement again, but then he has a beard and he's withered away. So it's like, wait, so he was in there for weeks. only to have Hackett show up, and then they put it all together, and then Oliver, all normal, walks in, and it's like, wait, Gemini was in solitary confinement,
So apparently she can grow a beard when she's.
So yeah, that was my question: was either she did wait for weeks, or she just made it look like she waited for weeks.
I mean, they say because she's still in prison at the end.
Yeah.
So the assumption is that she took Ollie's place and went to prison while Ollie put everything together on the outside to deliver the evidence to the news, which is kind of a thrown away thing. We don't get any explanation on that.
Which Cross, then when they come to get him, Cross just jumps out a window.
Yeah, because it ends up putting Hackett in prison. Waller, for some reason, gets shut down.
Yep, because apparently because Supermax was too inhumane.
Yeah, but the prison, we didn't even see one guard beat one prisoner. Like, it's not that bad. And I just don't, it doesn't make sense.
It was, the way I was kind of thinking about this script was like the first 15 pages were super rushed, and then the last like 10 pages were super rushed.
Yeah.
And
the last like 2 pages felt even more rushed than that.
But then that middle, 80 or whatever was very, I don't know. It like, would you say 30 pages was the escape scene?
I don't even know if I would say that many.
It felt, I don't know. It's weird because for those who don't write, listening to the podcast, like the standard rule in both like TV, film, and like stage writing is approximately a page a minute.
Yeah.
So the reason when we say minutes or pages, so when it's on page 40, that's around 40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
And so 116
you
pages,
want
it's
to be
a little less than 2 hours.
You want to be at a certain point by a certain minute.
Yeah.
Just to keep it moving.
Yeah. And so like it felt very just like we said, 30 minutes kind of rounding the posse up, and then like 20 minutes of them escaping, and then all of a sudden, and then everything gets solved. It was very.
The end is so rushed. But I've often felt that when I read a lot of these scripts, endings feel rushed quite a bit. And maybe it's just the way things get dragged out when you're filming, during the production, the way they do it. But it doesn't feel final here. It doesn't feel like anything's really accomplished. And the things that are accomplished don't make sense.
Here's where it was kind of tough for me. So, like, we know this is an Oliver Queen Green Arrow story.
Yeah.
But there was no... So, like, they introduced all these side characters, and besides Gemini and Icicle, all of them die.
Yeah.
And then, like, it just, like... It was hard to kind of latch on to anyone, and it felt very, by the end of it, like you said, it felt unresolved, but also they resolved things.
Yeah, like the things they resolve just don't matter. Like, why should we care about the things they resolve? Aside from the big plot of Oliver being set up and stuff like that, like all of the side plots, none of them matter.
Well, okay, the biggest guilty party of that is like the Merlin character, because he was the one who actually murdered the official in the beginning,
and he's so thrown away.
So, and that's who like Waller really wanted, and like knew that there was something wrong with him, but like, so he gets caught, and it's like, okay, so it's not about Merlin, it's about the lawyer best friend that betrays Ollie.
Yeah.
But then you said his reasonings are kind of iffy, because Hackett is barely in the script.
Yeah, he's like
Hackett
in the
was a
middle,
hack
like
character.
2 pages throughout the middle of the script, and then his little bit at the end, and that's it.
Yeah, so why his motivations were very thin, and then Cross was in even less of it.
Yeah, yeah, and when he barely spoke. Like, the most menacing thing he did is contact the prison guard, and he's the one who kind of gets Merlin in because he has connections.
So, and I think you brought this up earlier. So, like, what is Oliver's arc? So, like, he's framed.
He doesn't have.
He goes into prison.
The same character at the beginning, and he's the same at the end.
He figures out how to escape. He learns to work with, these prisoners. Some of which they die. Some of them he lets go, but then he puts away his best friend.
The closest thing to an arc is when he lets Icicle go.
But like,
But there's no character development. He's the same.
If
throughout the
anything,
entire script.
he's worse because he had to use him.
Yeah.
He only let him go because he used him to get out.
So we did gloss over something. There is the flashback where he says he killed a man to get off the island.
Oh, yes.
That like it was like a drug runner or something who had been using the island, and that's how he got off.
Yeah. So there was it Icicle or Gemini he was talking to, and I think Ollie says, "Well, I'm not that great of a guy."
Basically, he's not that innocent. Like he has his own demons too.
Yeah. And so, like you said, it flashes back to a drug runner on the island. He kills him. But, like, I guess my thing was, like, that's it?
Yeah.
Like, yes, you shouldn't kill people. But it just felt very...
Like you said, it feels like a sequel. Like, it
Yes.
feels like we're missing the... Like you think of Iron Man 2, like what is Tony Stark's arc? We already know his arc. We know that he was this billionaire who was very selfish, who decided to become selfless and be a hero. So
But then the second one, he becomes selfish again because he's dying.
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of people don't like it. But like my thing,
but it's like you already know who this character is, so you don't need to worry too much about developing him.
The reason that, like you said, that this read as a sequel was because it very much sets up that, like, we introduce Ollie, we introduce Green Arrow, not necessarily the origin story, but we introduce Hackett, we introduce maybe Cross, and we go through an arc with them, and then this movie's like, oh, fuck, Hackett betrayed him.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, Cross
Like
is
who
trying
would
to...
carry over to a sequel?
Yeah.
Only Ollie.
And then, like, maybe the first film had Merlin again, and he was better, and I don't know, it just...
They wasted a villain.
It was hard to really latch on to anyone what was solved because we knew he was innocent from the get-go.
Yeah.
It was very
The
easily
script shows
framed.
us that. There's not even that mystery.
Yeah, exactly. It shows that he's at a party when the murder's happening.
And he even says that. And they're
Yeah.
just like, yeah, well, it's your arrows.
Well,
you were there.
Yeah, the arrows were green, man.
Yeah.
So it was you.
Like, who are you trying to fool?
And so it was just, I don't know. I don't know what the arc was, and I don't know.
I don't think there is one. I think that's the problem.
It was an excuse to see a really cool prison
Yeah.
thing, which, like, I like the concept.
Yeah, no, there's
very
some
much-
cool ideas for sure.
I would want to see. I mean, I know there's the Batman Arkham games.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like,
There was always the rumor that the Ben Affleck Batman movie might be an Arkham movie.
which I'm not sure about, but like, it would only work for me when it's, like we talked about, a sequel.
Yeah.
Like, but to kick off reading a character like this, where we barely know him, but then he's thrown in with all these other villains, and he tries to escape.
Yeah,
Cool.
This feels like it should be the fourth or fifth movie.
Yeah.
And if you're, like, introduce a bunch of villains, like, it's the reason why, one of the reasons why Suicide Squad was such a bad idea is because you had to spend so much time in that movie introducing these villains. You should have done a bunch of movies that featured these villains and then throw them in one movie.
I mean, maybe that could have helped, but like, I don't know. It just, again, I like the idea. I just felt like the execution was very. They were spending time on things I didn't like. We didn't really need to know much about the villain team.
No.
I wanted to know more about Hackett.
Yeah.
Why was he betraying him? Besides, like, well, Ollie holds the whole world and he won't share. All right.
Yeah.
My friend
That's
had
it.
really cool action figures he didn't share with me. Did I want to kill my friend?
No. I mean, that Darth Vader was pretty cool.
Yeah, but seriously, like, it's...
Yeah, and I totally had an idea here. Fuck, what was I going to say?
Something about Hackett? talking about
It was
Hackett?
more about Ollie. Oh, no, it was about... So it's a comic book movie. You think when do comic movies usually release? Like the summer, later. Like when we want to see a big action movie, there's not a lot of action in the script, and you're like, that's fine. Maybe it's a character piece. There's not a lot of character work either.
Yeah, it has to be one or the other. Like, did you see Guardians Volume 2?
Not yet.
Okay, so like one thing I will say without spoiling is like there's plenty of action.
Yeah.
But what I liked about it most was there's a lot of character moments.
Yeah.
Especially because it's a sequel with a
And
group.
it's like Civil War, the last half of Civil War. Like the beginning of that movie has a lot of action, like the
Yeah.
first half, but then the last half becomes like a character piece.
Yeah, and so like you said, it's got to be one or the other. Either this is about Oliver, learning that maybe it should have started that he was, because they show this in the season 1 where he was killing people.
Yeah.
He was straight up like Punisher with arrows.
Yeah.
But then he learns that he shouldn't kill people. But then it's like, but that's Batman. It's
Yeah.
it needed something, and it's hard to. Usually, I don't like to say something's bad unless I have my own idea for how to fix it. But it's hard with this type of concept. I think, like you said, this should have been a second, third, fourth, fifth.
Yeah,
somewhere.
as an introductory, I don't know how you make it work.
Yeah, because like the flashbacks, I like the idea of showing stuff, but what if we already knew that stuff?
Yeah, because I mean, we're coming in with the TV show knowledge. We know a little bit because we watched the show. We maybe have read the comics, and this movie doesn't give us enough of why is he the Green Arrow? What made him the Green Arrow?
One thing I wrote that was like, if you are not a comic book fan or like the show hadn't been out yet, because this was written before the show, you would have no idea anything about this character.
Yeah, no, not at all.
He's a rich guy who gets framed.
What does a non-comic book fan grab onto?
Yeah. And it's, I don't know. Like, I know we've said that a lot, but I don't know what they should have done. Like, whether they focus on more action and it's not about the character stuff or focus on the character stuff.
I guess maybe the only thing I can think of is have something going on outside of the prison. Like, give him a sidekick, give him Arsenal or somebody.
Or Oracle,
and have something going on outside of like, hey, they have to find some evidence to help him get out, and tie that together.
Because I thought that's what Hackett was going to be. Because Hackett was a lawyer. So
that me too. In the beginning, I was like, oh, he's going to be...
And his best friend, who knows he's Green Arrow.
Yeah.
So what...
And then immediately they're like, oh, no, he's the one who set him up. And you're like, oh, shit.
How cool would it have been a moment where, and this is almost like we said, this would have played better if this was a second movie, was if Hackett and him were best friends, kind of like Tommy Merlin on the show, and then this is how Hackett finds out, is that Ollie gets caught, and he's kind of just like, well,
oh shit,
well,
I didn't
he's
know.
Capable of this, like, but do I help him get out? He's my best friend.
Yeah.
No, he couldn't have done this. And then he starts digging, he finds out it's a frame, and then he tries to prove his innocence through like the law. But
that would have helped.
They went the cheap,
best friend wants the money.
Yeah, best friend betrays. So it's
I mean, maybe
it's not the worst script I've ever read.
No, absolutely not. Like I said before, maybe it's very first draft. Maybe this is something that could have evolved into a great movie.
Yeah.
But if this made it to screen as it is, I just feel like I would have been very bored.
Yeah, I feel like it would have played kind of like the Fantastic Four movies.
Yeah,
where
like especially that first one.
Look at this stuff, and here's some cheesy jokes, and don't really worry about the characters or the overarching arc plot. Just here's a bunch of powers, and they do this and whatever.
Yeah, but. Yeah, it's sad to say that it was just kind of a boring read.
I remember when we were talking about like certain ones we'd want to read, and I was looking especially at the superhero ones because I'm a comic book fan.
Yeah, and there's
but
so
it
many.
said Green Arrow escaped from Supermax. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And the fact that, like we said, this was written before the show, I don't know. It's hard to. I guarantee. In some form, they will make a movie like this, whether it's with Batman or Green Arrow.
I think Batman is the one that makes the most sense because he's got the best Rose Gallery. Come on.
Yes, so that's what I was going to say. Is so like because Green Arrow and Batman are so similar. They're billionaires who use their powers for good or don't have powers, but they use their skills for good. And I think it would have been made more sense because Batman doesn't have. Like, Green Arrow has the bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Batman is just his knowledge, his fists.
Well, he's got some gadgets. He's got a batarang.
He's got gadgets, but, like, he also is just good at hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, he's mostly just going to go in there and beat somebody in the face.
And so, opposed to introducing us to C-list villains, Batman, like you said, has the best villains.
Yeah.
We can see Riddler. We can see Joker, Harley Quinn, Two-Face, Deathstroke.
Yeah.
I can go on and on.
I can only name one Arrow villain, and that's Merlin.
Yeah, which they treat as a C-list villain, like Split.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be his like arch nemesis. So
yeah,
I don't have a whole lot more to say about it.
Those were kind of my final thoughts. Was rushed beginning, rushed ending, slow middle.
Yeah,
It's
some good ideas that maybe just didn't get enough time.
yeah, like you said, I wouldn't doubt if this was a first or second draft.
Yeah. And I mean, there were still interviews of them saying like, yeah, it's still floating around. I highly doubt anybody's considering it anymore, especially with where DC is now.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. It's one of these things where like, if they eventually do make a Green Arrow movie, which I assume eventually, maybe not anytime soon.
He's become too popular to not.
Yeah, because the show is very successful.
I mean, it's on season 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Usually the show's not. I mean, I won't say shows aren't bad that go that long, but like for a comic book character.
Yeah, and for a character that I don't think there's probably not a huge fan base for Green Arrow.
No, I hadn't really known much about the character before that.
And nobody
show.
else I know that watched the show did either.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where like, oh, maybe later when they do make a movie that, oh, it'd be fun to see if any of these ideas made it in. Because that's one thing I have noticed from some scripts. Like we read a Spider-Man script from 1993, and that almost matches the first Tobey Maguire movie exactly at certain points.
I remember I was thinking about that the whole time I listened to your guys' episode about the Max Landis Power Rangers.
Yeah.
And then seeing the Power Rangers that came out just a couple months ago in 2017 here. And I was comparing, kind of how the Rangers met each other and, Alpha 5.
That was something I think we talked about on the episode. It was like, oh, I wonder if any of this will make it into that movie. And like just the faintest of hints of things. But other than that, I didn't notice a lot. But that is a fun thing with these scripts. And that's kind of what I take out of it is like, oh, it might not have been that fun to read, but maybe in the future I'll have a little bit of inside information that the person sitting next to me in the theater doesn't have.
Yeah. And like you said, it's interesting to read scripts that do get made, different versions, or like this that was not made.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think this would work for Batman.
Yeah, it would.
Because like I know a lot of people, like my one friend, I'll give a shout out to Andrew Clatter. We've discussed when you said there was rumors of an Arkham Asylum movie. And his thing is like he obviously loves Batman like we do. But he's like, what's more interesting to me is like the Bruce Wayne side of things.
Yeah.
So
that's something they don't do a lot in the movie.
And so like with this, it was like we said, were we seeing Oliver Queen or were we seeing Oliver Queen Green Arrow, but without the costume?
Yeah.
Like it didn't have that duality that a lot of them do. And I think that's what hurt it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something you look for in a superhero movie, and it's just completely absent here. Yeah, they get a little crazy. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much it. That pretty much covers it.
I'd be interested, like we said, in the idea, but not this script.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And I hope they do make a Green Arrow movie in the future, and maybe we'll see some elements pop up. Like maybe they'll take some of the good stuff. But
which one thing too, I didn't think we never got to is your thoughts on Stephen Amell as Green Arrow.
I like him a lot. I think he's really great.
I think he works too. I think part of me just wants to see, because I was first exposed to the Justice League Unlimited one. He's a bigger guy with blonde beard, blonde hair. Like he's kind of. I wanted someone like that.
Sorry, are they yelling my name? Sorry, I didn't know if they were trying to give me shit because this is going a little longer than.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Oh, we're both talkers.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I guess that I would love to see a Green Arrow movie, but I'd love to see someone else's interpretation. Of, like someone totally left field.
Yeah, don't let Goyer anywhere near it, is what I would say. Don't let him near any movie for a while. But yeah, I don't know. I hope to see a Green Arrow movie. And if they do it, I would be okay if they use Stephen Amell. I think he's just fine.
Oh yeah. I was kind of upset that they're not going to use Grant Gustin's Flash.
Yeah,
he was pretty much a great.
Like
Barry
I like
Allen.
the guy they chose. I can't remember his name.
Ezra Miller.
Yeah, Ezra Miller. I think he'll do fine.
Yeah.
But I think that movie is going to be terrible. Not the Flash movie, but Justice League.
Yeah. I think my thing was, especially, this isn't the case with Green Arrow, but like with Flash or Green Lantern or Batman, like when there's different people who be the hero, like there's Wally West, there's Jay Garrick, there's Barry Allen.
Yeah.
Why not have Wally West be in the movie and we have Barry Allen on the show?
Yeah. And they've already seeded a multiverse on the show. Just hey, the movies are one universe, the shows are another, and maybe bring them together at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll wrap it up here. I know
Yeah,
we've been going for a while.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We talked about Green Arrow for like 3 hours.
No, it's fine. Do you have anything you want to promote? I know you've already talked about an entertainment buffet.
Sure. I will plug the Entertainment Buffet podcast, which we release episodes every other Tuesday on iTunes and most places you can find podcasts. And
I
also,
just finally got on Stitcher. I'm figuring it out.
Yeah. Stitcher was a big one that I didn't use, but it's people listen.
Yeah.
And another one, Pocket Casts. I didn't know that was
I've
a
never
thing.
heard of that.
Me neither.
So maybe I should look into that.
So the other thing is Entertainment Buffet. We're finally releasing some new sketches soon.
Yeah, you have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
So and I've seen you've been talking about this
because it's as a writer / director / producer, whatever. I literally have 12 videos that are being edited right now.
Yeah.
But editors take forever.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are like, didn't you shoot something like a year ago? I was like, I know. Editors keep putting it off. So
yeah,
it's
I've heard you harping on them on your recent episodes.
Yeah,
but you have one up, you're saying?
One is coming up. I don't know when this is dropping.
This is dropping next Friday.
Okay, so yeah, something just came up called The Big Hoopla. This sketch that featured the Dizzy Dynamic. She has like thousands of followers as a hula hooper. So yeah, check that out. We have more videos coming, more web shows. And if you're in the Chicago area, we're holding auditions June 4th for our play.
Yeah.
Is
this the play you were telling me about?
Yes.
Okay. You need to keep me updated on this because I love this idea.
Yeah. So we're holding auditions. Hopefully, we want to aim for August, September to put the play up in Chicago. My dad's a workaholic for actual job things, and I'm a creative workaholic.
Yeah. Where can they find the information on the auditions?
Entertainment Buffet on Facebook, or I think it's on theaterchicago.com. We posted, but yeah, usually entertainmentbuffet.com or Facebook and Entertainment Buffet. I try to update, whether it's videos, podcasts, or this play. So yeah. All right. I gave you like an hour of plugs now.
Oh no, that's fine. That's the point. That's why I asked for them. You have more plugs than anyone else on the show. So. I
appreciate you having me on, man.
It's absolutely. Fun to be this was guest. Fun. Yeah, and I'm definitely gonna have you back.
And you're gonna have to come on the Entertainment Buffet podcast.
Absolutely, anytime. But all right, thanks for sitting with me, man. It was really great talking to you.
It's always interesting. This is like the second or third time I've met someone in person for the first time, but then podcast with them
immediately afterwards.
Exactly. It's a great way to meet someone because you just talk for like an hour or two.
I mean, that's why we go a little longer is we're meeting for the first time, so we're getting to know each other. But I really appreciate you coming on, and I definitely want to come do your show. I have a lot of fun listening to it, so I think I'll have a lot of fun joining in. So we'll set that up at some point.
Awesome.
But yeah, all right, everybody, thanks for listening, and Brandon, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.